here at Warren Oates Cockfighter's Palace?
I'm taking a vow of silence inspired by this movie until this episode comes out.
God, what a wild concept. Here, let's cast Warren Oates in this movie, but you don't get to talk.
Hold on 1 second, guys. I gotta reopen Audacity.
I want to leave this part in. This is what happens behind the scenes during the making of podcasting, ladies and gentlemen. He's revealing our secrets. It's like podcasting secrets revealed.
Something is not working here.
Yeah, this would be riveting. Just being like the intro to the podcast is just Mark struggling because his computer fucking hates him, Cullen playing guitar, and me sitting here.
I think when I unplugged my headset, it jacked it up.
Wigged it out.
It's not working.
The Ballad of the Cockfighter. Ooh, ew, ew. Where's the Ballad of the Cockfighter? Like, why was that not a thing?
It can be.
Right?
I mean, Roger Corman probably just didn't want to pay.
Right? Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. Do we get to talk about the movie now? Hey, everybody, it's the Culture Cast. Mark Begley's here, joined by Cullen Gallagher of Pulp Serenade. Mark Begley of the Wake Up Heavy podcast, programmed this entire month because he loves Ed Begley Jr. movies, but doesn't know what movies he's actually in for more than 1 minute. I mean, he's in this movie more than he was in the last one.
Yes.
And he also gets to say, "You killed Little Joe! You killed Little Joe!"
He's so good in this.
Oh my God. That fucking hair, man.
I'm pretty sure this is the most amount of screen time he gets in the 4 movies. I'm having a little bit harder time remembering Hardcore, but if my memory is right, I know it was wrong about one thing I mentioned last time. If it's right on his screen presence, it's literally like a cameo.
Blink and you'll miss it.
And having watched Citizens Band just a couple weeks ago, he definitely has. That's kind of in between this and the Disney movie.
Sure.
But this is definitely the most out of the 4.
So yeah, this episode of the Culture Cast, we're talking about Cockfighter.
What you are about to see is illegal in 47 states.
The black chicken.
I'll take 25 to 30.
I'll take it.
You're on. I'll lay 25 to 30. 25 to 30 on the red.
I'll lay 30 to 20.
25 to 30 there. Anybody got it?
Oh, you got it. 50 to 30. On the black. I got the black rooster.
You want to know something, boy? I am the finest trainer and conditioner in the whole world.
All right, let's go.
Cockfighting, the dirtiest sport in the world.
Get ready. Be it.
Now watch your face. No pity, no love, nothing.
Oh, wow. Hey, listen, Mr. Mansfield, I'm sorry. You know, I didn't bring no cash with me. I was so sure I was going to win and everything. But listen, I got some money at home. I got a lot of it. I'm going to bring it back as soon as I get home. Go on!
Frank Mansfield, professional with a passion for violence.
I want to get married and have children.
The drive in it is to be the best. I like to call it sharpness. Not since the hustler has the violent underbelly of the gambling world been so nakedly exposed. What kind of a man risks everything in America's most controversial blood sport? The kind who will do anything to win. It's the desire to win.
I'm not going to wait for you forever.
Winning is the name of the game.
This is a stick-up. Hands over your heads. Anybody who moves gets a head blasted off.
Blam! And he knocks off the young rooster. And he says, "Damn it, that's the 3rd faggot rooster I had this week."
I got the finest 5-pound chicken alive, Jack. Right here in my hands, the very finest.
I think that bird has more of a heart than you ever will have.
Anything that can fight to the death and not utter a sound, well, winning is the name of the game. Warren Oates. Cockfighter. Rated R.
But I prefer the hilarious Born to Kill poster because it's just wild. Oh.
Does that version exist still?
I mean, isn't it just the
I think
same
it's just a
movie?
retitle. I don't know.
Yeah.
They shot more. Louis Teague, the editor, shot new footage. That is what I had read.
I don't know. I'd be curious to see that, actually.
I couldn't find any information to say that they said it had it recut and re-released. So
I mean, would probably have to find like an actual print.
Right. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Cockfighter, or Born to Kill as it's known, but we didn't watch that one, clearly. Yeah, so it's directed by Monte Hellman, based on the book by Charles Willeford named Cockfighter. The screenplay is by Charles Willeford, and it stars Warren Oates as the titular Cockfighter, who is a mute in this movie because he's taken a vow of silence until he wins the Cockfighter of the Year championships, and he gets that darn spiffy little gold medal. And along the way, he makes friends with an interesting fella who lives in the middle of nowhere, and they have a cockfighting farm. And Harry Dean Stanton's there in a suit, looking like he's just like he's on the set of another movie, really. And Ed Begley Jr.'s there, wearing some very tall overalls.
As is Donnie Fritz, wearing a mask.
God.
I was so psyched when I got to the credits and it said Donnie Fritz was the head, henchman, the stick-up guy.
Right.
Because Donnie Fritz is Chris Christopherson's keyboard player.
Huh.
So even though you don't see his face, I'm just like, okay, it's great to know that Donnie Fritz took some time off from touring with Chris Christopherson to hang out on the set of this movie, put on a mask, and grab a gun.
And so as Cullen kind of mentioned, this movie is it's kind of seedy, and there's a lot of weird kind of 70s stuff is going on in this movie. Is the only way I would put it. So Mr. Begley, as this is Begley on Begley month, or Begleyuary, whatever the hell we're calling it, why did you pick Cockfighter? Because you did have other Ed Begley movies to pick.
A ton of Ed Begley movies to pick from. I picked Cockfighter because this is just about tied for my favorite new watch of last year. It's tied with a film called Rancho Deluxe, which I couldn't stop talking about all last year after I saw it.
It's so good.
I watched this 2 days after Monte Hellman passed away, and it's a name that I have known for years, mainly because of Two-Lane Blacktop and its kind of cult status. And Cockfighter was one that I had looked for a while, and when I say looked for, I generally mean streaming, because I'm cheap and we already pay for a bunch of streaming services, and I can't buy every movie sight unseen that I'd like to see. So it was never streaming anywhere. I went to look for some of his other films, just assuming that this still wouldn't be streaming, and I think when I was looking at the shooting, Cockfighter came up as a suggestion, and it was playing everywhere at the time. And Prime, Epix, Screen Picks, Tubi. I mean, it was literally on 10 different services, and I was like, oh shit, well, I'm watching this. And I just became smitten with it. It was just like Rancho Deluxe, kind of this really low-key venture into a certain subculture that I wasn't really aware of or had any experience with. And with that title, you do think it's going to be maybe a little bit seedier than it actually is, because it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a sweet movie, but it's a little bit more lighthearted than I think I thought it was going to be.
Other than all the bird killing.
Considering the world that it exists in, Yeah, and a caveat, if you don't want to see chickens get killed, do not watch this movie.
Yes. Yes. That is a kind of a big caveat with this movie. I'm not sure how you could watch it without... I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird position to be in with this movie, in a way, because, I really enjoyed it. But I'm curious, Cullen, what's your take on this movie before I have mine?
I mean, I like the movie. I've been wanting to see it for years, and what stopped me was, I wanted to read the book, which I did for this podcast because I love Willeford, and Mark, if you're looking for more seediness, read the book. They Williford made the main character a lot more likable and charming. And there's a little bit more, I don't know if violence is the right word, but for instance, in the training of the chickens, he at one point like cuts the legs off one and lights it on fire and then throws it in the pit to fight. So
wow,
that does not happen in the movie.
Boy, I can say with absolute certainty, I'm glad it did not.
So yeah, the movie's a little bit more.
Ain't no stunt chicken doing that one's work, if you know what I mean.
Thankfully, no. Did not need to see that.
Jesus Christ Almighty!
Yeah, this movie could have only been made when it was made in the U.S. That is.
Yeah. I was about to say, and it's kind of surprising it did get made in the U.S. in the way that it did. But
there were other movies, I think, that involved cockfighting at the same time, because there's a whole like New York Times like article being like, because I haven't seen Day of the Locust, but apparently that has cockfighting, and they're like, oh, in this movie coming up next year, Cockfighter also has it, and I think they reference a third movie. So I guess it was a thing.
But how many of them have Warren Oates ripping a chicken's head off? That's the true question here. Is by the end of the movie, are you really ready for the pièce de résistance that is the final fucking scene of this film? Because I sure as shit was not.
I'd actually forgotten about that. I knew that there was obviously real cockfighting in it and real chicken deaths. And how do you fake that? I mean, you can obviously have chickens fight without the spurs on and stuff, and maybe fudge it some other ways. But yeah,
I don't think that's what they were
ripping
doing.
the head off, I totally forgot about, and kind of forgot about him chopping the other one's head off as well when he's at the camp with Omar and Buford training the cocks, the gamecocks.
That last scene just, boy, Warren Oates, man, no fear, brother, do it. Just no fear, man. Like, step on the fucking head and pull. Like, okay. Holy shit.
It's funny you say no fear, because for Projection Booth, I watched No Fear, No Die by Claire Denis, which also involves cockfighting.
There you go.
This is two cockfighting movies this week for podcasts I had to watch.
Look, outside of kind of the wanton chicken fighting or cockfighting, which obviously, I mean, again, you don't make a movie called Cockfighter and not have, like you said, I guess they could have faked it, but this is 74, so that's not going to happen. Nope. I enjoyed it, but boy, yeah, the chicken fighting stuff is a hurdle to get over, because Monte Hellman doesn't just film this movie. He lets the camera linger on the chickens fighting for a while.
And photographed by one of the greatest cinematographers, Nestor Almendros.
Which I think adds to... I mean, it obviously adds to the quality of this film, but it gives this film a look that, I mean, I don't know. This is the kind of look I would want for a film like this at this time. Like, you know, it's like Deliverance. It has that same kind of backwoods feel to it.
Well, and he was very into natural lighting, and this is the kind of movie where that really works effectively. Yep.
All the outdoors stuff. He didn't use... I remember from his book, he said, like, if I'm outdoors, I don't really use lights. If I'm indoors, I try to put people by a window. If it's at night, I just turn on a lamp. And that scene in the hotel room between the flashback between Harry Dean Stanton and Warren Oates, I think you can just stick one light in the far corner and these like wild shadows on the wall. And
right.
That is just such his style.
Great scene. That's a great scene. And the usage of light in that scene is pretty. It's pretty. Obviously, it's intentional, but it's kind of like unlike the rest of the movie in a lot of ways. Like they use that lighting, that specific kind of lighting in that scene to highlight that scene as a flashback, which I think is interesting. I mean, this is an interesting movie. I mean, again, they don't, like you said, Colin, that this movie couldn't be made now. And this isn't, I mean, the movie's creation is interesting in and of itself. Like, to be on the set for this movie, to be able to sit and, like, just listen to the people talking, and, like, it must have just been wild.
If any publisher is listening, please bring Williford's Cockfighter Journal back into print. I think the cheapest copy is a few $100s online.
We ain't got those kind of pockets over here for that.
Come on, why didn't you supply us all with a copy of that?
Oh my God.
I was going to read the book, actually, Colin, because you mentioned you were going to get it, and I had it in my Amazon cart for a while, kind of forgot, and then I went back, and it was gone from there, and I looked around and tried to find it at a local library, and then just ended up forgetting again, and then realizing, oh wait, now it's too late. I don't think I can get this done.
This book has had a weird, troubled history, because it was a few years ago, it was brought back into print along with Williford's, oh my God, it's something about a street. There was a street, I'm forgetting the title, but they brought it back into print, and it's gone again. You know, it had been brought back into print like in the 90s, then quickly went out of print. In the 80s, it had been in and out of print. And because it came out in 62 in paperback, and a few days after it came out, the publisher got killed in a car accident, and all the copies basically had to be remaindered. And then it was 10 years before it came out again in 72. And I think Williford rewrote parts of the book. And that's the version that the movie is based off of.
Yeah, I had read that about the second edition. And it's always curious when that happens.
I really want to track down the first edition, even though, according to Don Herron, Williford's biographer, the second version is far superior.
Pulling a George Lucas and going back, fixing old stuff, huh?
I mean, I think just judging by Don Herron's book, like a lot of Williford's manuscripts, especially in the beginning part of his career, got edited by, the publishers. They would throw in sex scenes or, demand something. And so.
Well, we do get a sex scene in this movie.
Kind of.
Sort of. Halfway sex scene.
I think the thing that I like about it, and it could be about something else, the fact that it's about cockfighting gives it a certain edge and allure, and maybe, this is kind of
it's lurid,
underground and lurid. But I love these Odyssey type tales where the hero is going on this mission and everything else is irrelevant in their life, and this is their one goal. The one thing that he is going for is that stupid Cockfighter of the Year medal. Everything else be damned. And to set it in a world, a subculture that I don't know anything about, and to learn about it through the movie is, I think, the other side of that appeal for me with it. It could have been a lot more lurid. Apparently, if it had been more like the book, probably wouldn't be as enjoyable a film to watch. But it just struck me as fascinating. And you pick up on, we're not given exposition or anything. You start picking up the lingo as it goes on, and they keep saying gaffs and spurs and just the lingo of that subculture, and to see the people that were in it and the crowd scenes and all that. It just had a real nice rounded feel to me while I watched it.
I'm with you. I love the subculture, and I found the sort of social order of that subculture really fascinating in terms of ethics and the rules and which ones people obey and what happens when you disobey them. It's, people take that extremely seriously. And,
don't put your fingernail in that chicken's butthole.
Nope.
Yeah.
Because, apparently that is a legitimate rule that you will get kicked out of cockfighting for.
Yeah,
according to this movie. According to the book, I guess I would assume, or Charles Williford, who I assume did his research. Putting your finger up a chicken's butthole, I guess, agitates it?
I think in the book, it explains that it basically relaxes it.
Oh.
Because then you hear briefly in the movie, the referee says, that's how you throw a fight. So if you wanted your bird to, suddenly just like
Go live.
A little
go
too
live.
relaxed. Yeah.
With the wonderful Steve Railsback in that, who has a great turn, just about as good a turn as Ed Begley Jr. does in this, and the little bit of time that they're given.
Right?
I love that sketchy motherfucker in that. He's so great.
Hey, I got this bird here, man. Like, get the fuck away from me.
Oh, wait.
And you owe me
I don't have
$20.
my money.
Yeah. Yeah, I have it back at home. No, you don't. Yeah, and then you get the shifty motherfucker Ed Begley Jr. with their linoleum fighting floor. Oh, my God. Jesus H. Christ.
Tom Peoples and Little Joe.
You know that they're fighting on linoleum, and that's the gimmick, right? No, I didn't. Here's this wax so that your bird can fight better on the linoleum.
Yeah.
Honest to God,
great.
though, like, what's funny, though, is wouldn't you, as Warren Oates, as this, like, cockfighting, like, know-it-all, when you got there, wouldn't you be like, I'm not fighting my bird on this linoleum?
But he knew, because he had been told ahead of time, like,
Sure,
this is going to be a scam. So he's like, I'm going to show them a lesson. I'm going to beat them at their own game. He has a strange sense of honor. And I kind of get the feeling that before he took this vow of silence, well, it's like what Harry Dean Stanton says, you got two problems. You drink too much and you talk too much.
Right.
You kind of get the feeling that he was a total piece of shit. Just, nothing worked well in his life. He didn't have any money. It was just like he was a walking mess. And somehow this sort of vow of silence has given him the opportunity to find a little bit of integrity and honor. And I don't want to say he's become a good person, but I think in some ways he's maybe a little better of a person at the end than he was at the beginning.
He's like that Hemingway quote, always do sober what you said you'd do drunk. That will teach you to keep your mouth shut. Like, that's that... Like, he's that, like, he just I mean, you see it in that flashback scene where he causes his bird to get just destroyed by Harry Dean Stanton's bird.
Even Buford says, like, yeah, before he took the vow of silence, he was an insufferable boss who was always telling me shit to do. Now that he doesn't talk, he just does what he has to do and leaves me alone. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, he seems like a better person to be around.
The great James Earl Jones's dad there.
Yeah.
I remember, I don't know that I saw his name in the credits when I watched it, but I was like, man, that guy's a spitting image of James Earl Jones. And then when the credits at the end rolled by, I'm like, well, that cannot be a coincidence.
Right.
Yeah, the face, the voice, the eyes, very strong resemblance.
It's interesting, and I don't know if they touch upon this in the book, Colin, but when he goes back home, when he gets out of the bus and looks up at the water tower, apparently the town, I don't know if the town is named Mansfield or if it's just a business advertisement or something, but apparently it seems like his family was a big deal in his hometown. And he probably was a spoiled kid who squandered everything. And, he owns that house. Not a great house, but he owns the house outright. He's, to me, it seems like this became his thing, and that was it, and screw everybody else. And that opening dialogue or monologue says, I tried flying, gave up on that. I can't remember what the other thing is that he tries his hand at, gets bored with that. This is the only thing you can't beat, and it just cockfighting has, to use a pun, sunk its claws into him, and like I said earlier, everything else be damned. But I love that path that he makes to the tournament, and that's sort of that hero's journey, that Odyssey, where he's got to go do this fight in a hotel room, go to this little tournament here, go back home, confront people from his past, and who apparently he hasn't seen in either 2 years or 6 months. His sister, I believe, says, I haven't heard from you in like 2 years. And his girlfriend hasn't seen him in 6 months. And he might be a better person not talking. I think it might mainly be appearances, though. He's not as big of an asshole because he can't express it verbally.
So the family stuff in the book, it's given a little more explanation, but I basically think you're right that the family did have a little bit of prestige and he squandered it. What is different in the book is that his father cut him out of the will entirely and left the house to the brother. But as the older brother, it should have been his, So he goes after his brother owes him money, and his brother refuses to pay it. And his brother sort of just become a drunken louse because he just inherited this property. And so the Warren Oates character goes to the local lawyer in town and writes him a note and says, threaten my brother that you're going to, take this to court and that I will win the house because it's mine. And then you're just going to get him to agree for you to sell it and then give me this money I need to buy this bird. And the judge goes along with it, and the brother just kind of caves in. It's just like, oh yeah, sell the house. I don't care. One thing that's totally missing from the movie and that I really wish was in it was there's this like subplot about him becoming a professional guitarist. That's really amazing. Because it happens after he loses the trailer in his truck in the opening cockfight. He realizes he has a guitar, so he goes to a bar and gets a job sort of playing in between the house band sets. And he only knows 3 songs, and he made them all up himself. And he's just like, I'm going to get fired because I only know 3 songs, but I'm just going to have to keep repeating them. And so he goes out and improvises at one point, and everyone eats it up. And this older woman, who I think is a widow, hires him to come back to play a private party. And after the party, she overpays him because obviously she wants him to have sex with her. And he's really conflicted about this. And at first he says no, and then he goes to bed with her. And in the morning, he goes out, sneaks out of bed, smashes his guitar and leaves it on the front door. He later sends her money, to pay her back for the money that she paid him for the gig, and sends her flowers. And then she sends him an electric guitar. And so it's just like this thing that kind of goes through. And at the end of the movie, he writes his girlfriend a letter and says, come to see me cockfight. In the book, immediately after he writes that letter, he writes the other lady a letter and offers her the same thing. Says, come watch me cockfight. I'll get you a hotel room and save some seats.
Interesting.
So he's a little bit more of a scumbag in the...
See, now if that had been in there, you could have had a 2.5-hour movie instead of an 83-minute movie.
No, man, they could have still done it in 90 minutes. 7 minutes, you could have done the whole guitar stuff.
I like that it's pretty much just this world. I think it works for the movie.
Yeah, the poster kind of is a little bit of a lie. It's like his game is winning, her game is men. Like there is no female character in this movie, at all. Like zero. There's his girlfriend, but not really. There's his sister's. I guess is that his sister? The house,
the sister-in-law.
Yeah, but not.
Oh, that's
really.
this. Okay, see, I thought it was sister and
brother-in-law,
her husband.
Yeah,
but it's okay. I got you. Yeah,
yeah.
And then there's briefly Dodie at the beginning, the young girl.
Well, just take her too. I lost my trailer in my car. Just go with him.
Yeah,
but I love that she calls him out, being like, "I heard you talking in your sleep. You're full of shit."
Yeah,
like she's the only one that seems to realize how full of shit this guy is. Like everyone else just seems to be like, "Oh, you lost your voice."
But it's just, I find it funny. The poster is like, there's no female character of note. But
no.
Well, it's funny because you would think that the cockfighting would be the sell here. For me, it's the sell. That's why you watch this movie. It's because it's Warren Oates in a movie called Cockfighter, for fuck's sake. You're watching it for the thing that's kind of the seedy, feels a little dirty. It feels a little, like you shouldn't be watching it, right? In a little way, because you've been told, they're keeping the animals safe on set. Nobody's doing anything. And then you watch a movie like this, and it's like, PETA ain't nowhere around, or whatever, whoever protects the animals now on shoots in Hollywood. But they're not, this is not this.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark, you were right. It is very much, it's a hero's journey. It's something kind of spiritual almost for this character. It's just this is I'm choosing my destiny, and I'm going to make this happen.
There's a reverence given to the cockfighting. It's played very slowly. You watch it all. It's and the way I'm imagining is he's watching that. That's his view of it, and that's the way he sees it. It's his obsession. I mean, it's his obsession, obviously.
Yeah.
The question is at the end of the movie, when he wins the medal, does he move on to something else now that he's conquered this, or does he, and that's right. Yeah. I mean, again, what do you have left to do when you've won the cockfighting championship of South Carolina?
I would hazard a guess that he just has to keep on going and keep that medal from year to year now. Like he says at the beginning, this is the one thing you can't beat. It's got him.
I sort of see him becoming like the Ed Middleton character, who's played by Williford himself in this. He becomes like a referee, Right. But even though, he wants to, his wife wants him to get rid of these birds and do something else with his life, he can't give it up.
Right.
Like, I don't think Warren Oates is ever going to fully get out of this game. I don't know if he's ever going to be able to sustain being on top, because there's always going to be somebody to knock him down, but, he will have that medal.
And does he repeat the cycle when he opens his mouth? Right? That's the other question. Because, by the end of the movie, it's like, you assume that he is a changed character. But then, does he open his mouth and get himself right back into trouble again? And, this is a fun movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun avenues to go. There's a lot of fun things to think about. Warren Oates is great. It's the first movie I've seen him in.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, he's always
Stripes.
Fabulous.
No, I have not seen Stripes.
Oh, that was my first experience with him. I don't think when I saw him in movies later on, I realized it was the guy from Stripes. But, yeah, man, he's something else. And if you watch quite a few of the other Monte Hellman films, you're going to see more and more of him. And if you haven't seen Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, you need to check that one out too.
Yeah, Wild Bunch.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys, kind of like Dennis Hopper or Jack Nicholson, who was in a bunch of those 60s westerns when they were really young. And
right.
I was about to say that I love watching the 60s TV westerns, and especially in the episodes directed by Peck and Pa, Warren Oates is bound to pop up.
Yeah, or even just in the films too. Like, you're watching a John Wayne movie, and then all of a sudden you've got Dennis Hopper and all these other dudes in the background who later, become the counterculture revolution. So,
have you seen Private Property yet, Mark or Chris? Oh, Chris, you haven't, because you haven't seen Warren Oates. But
no, I have not. Yeah,
it was released a few years ago.
That sounds really familiar.
I saw it. I think it was at the New York Film Festival, and it's since gotten a Blu-ray release. And he co-stars in it, but it's about these two guys that, find this. It's like they're in Hollywood. They see this woman, that's sort of left alone in this house, and they sort of pretend to be gardeners in order to make their way into this house and sort of get into her good graces, and they're just trying to seduce her.
Yes, it was on. I think it was on TCM a while back, but I don't know if I watched it. Maybe I did. I'll have to look at my Letterboxd list later on. It sounds really familiar though, and
it's really good. It's disturbing, very low budget sleaze noir, but very well made.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude, and I kind of forgot that he doesn't talk in the movie. I mean, you get a lot of the narration and stuff, which is great, and because he's got a pretty distinctive voice and a really interesting delivery, and so that's sort of missing from it for a little bit, or for most of the film. But then you just get these odd when people are telling him jokes. There's a couple of times in the movie his girlfriend tells him a joke, and Omar tells him a joke, and he does that real exaggerated clap on his leg. I mean, you can still laugh without making a sound, but I like those strange choices that he did with that. That has to be hard.
It's a hell of a performance for what he, most of the time you're expected to convey your emotions through your voice and your expression, but it's all expression, which is great. I mean, he has a great look about him, which allows him to pull it off. He's a character actor. I mean,
he's got a great rubbery face, so he can do some great.
Oh yeah, I mean he's mugging for the camera. I mean he's mugging big time. He's got it's great. I mean it's great. Again, like you said, Mark, it's kind of a funny movie. There's some comedy here. It's not overwhelming. It's ha 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 ha, hilarious. But there are moments there are moments throughout the film of comedy.
The heist is funny.
Yeah, exactly.
I love the fact that after, he has to, Omar has to hide the money and the dead chickens in the bathtub. And then, the gangsters all have, like president, I think it's like Nixon masks, and they're robbing the hotel room cockfight. And the one guy hides the money in the tobacco pouch. So of course they don't rob him of that. And as soon as they leave, they all start cracking up. And the gangsters is waiting right outside the door because they know that somebody's hid some money. And so they wait 5 seconds, come in and take it.
That poor old guy.
I think my favorite is the woman who they force her to just take her underwear off for whatever reason. Did you notice that? Like, everybody take your pants off, and she's just like taking her underwear off, like,
Oh, I didn't catch that, actually.
Yeah. It's like, everybody take your pants off, and it's like, she's not wearing pants. Like, guys. Yeah, I tell you what, Harry Dean Stanton in this movie, pretty good.
Oh,
Harry
always,
great.
Always good, yes.
Yeah.
He's in a number of Monte Hellman films, too. But the both of them together, and I just love Harry Dean Stanton. And you mentioned his dress earlier, and I just love that he's kind of the dandy of this group and always dressed to the nines. And
do you know how old he is when this movie's being made? How old Harry Dean Stanton is? Guess the age of Harry Dean Stanton, the man who, like Abe Vigoda, his age is indeterminate most of the time.
Probably my age.
I'm gonna guess 42.
48.
Oh, see.
He was born in 26, which would put him, 42. No. Am I wrong? Is that 42? No.
Well,
if the movie's 74, so...
Warren Oates was born in 28, and he was 46 when this came out. I did the math on that because
he was born in 26, so he was 48.
40. If I look that good when I'm 48, I'll be very happy.
I think they both look
pretty
their
good.
age or a little bit younger. It's not like Joe Flynn and Now You See Him, Now You Don't, where he's roughly the same age as them, but looks like he's 60.
Right. That's fair. Yeah, no, I mean, I just love Harry Dean Stanton because, like, he legitimately is an actor who's, like, age I can never tell. Like, it's always just, he's Harry Dean Stanton. Like, the age of the character is whatever, really. Like, it's Harry Dean Stanton doing the role.
He's just so good in this.
He's so good in general.
Yeah, he's so good
all the time. Yeah, just like one of he's
Ride the Whirlwind. He's great.
Yeah, that's another one that's really good.
Repo Man. I mean, Jesus Christ. I don't know. He's just Wild at Heart. Last Temptation of Christ. Good God. To have his credit list is one thing, but to live to 91 and have his credit list is even more impressive because he was making movies up until like the year he passed away.
Pretty much till the end, yeah.
Yeah, because he goes nominated posthumously, I think.
And Ed Begley Jr. is in that as well. Could have picked that one.
Right, yeah.
Maybe we'll do Harry Dean Stanton next year.
Yeah.
That could be an entire year's worth of movies. It just could be Harry Dean Stanton year.
So I did want to ask Mr. Begley, since it is Begley on Begley Month, what did you think of Ed Begley Jr.'s performance in this movie?
I get a kick out of it. This is similar to... I had thought of it earlier and I should have written it down. It reminded me of his very small role in Blue Collar because he's doing this Southern accent and he's not Southern.
He is so California. Ed
By any
Begley
stretch of
Jr. 's from
imagination.
California, my friends.
And it's not super authentic, but it's kind of funny. But I love that he gets to play this cocky asshole in this. Mr. Mansfield, why don't you fight my chicken? It's got 6 wins and all this stuff. And he's so excited to take it back. And you can't do it here, though, because his chicken is shy or whatever the guy's dad says. And try to swindle old, Frank Mansfield with this. But I love that whole bit. It gets almost a little bit slapsticky there with the cockfight and kills his bird like in under 10 seconds. And he flips out and then they start fighting. And it's the same kind of thing. He's not a match for Frank. Frank knocks him out twice and then shoves his head underwater for a while. So it's just this great little odd, quirky performance in the middle of this movie.
Seeing him rush the car with an axe and smash the window. You're just like, all right, this guy's taking control. And then Warren Oates just like pulls him against the door. He just grabs the ass, pulls him, hits his head, and the guy's like knocked out.
Poor Ed.
He gets there's a lot of energy in that performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, he stands out among like kind of the disparate scenes that kind of pepper through the movie of like little interactions, like 5 to 10 minute interactions. Which, like you said, Mark, it is very. I like these kinds of movies. I do appreciate these kinds of. It's modern day comparison. Oh brother, where art thou? It kind of same thing.
Yeah, that's actually what I kept thinking, and that's I think what put the Odyssey bit in my head. Like, they go through these things. There's no. There's literal sirens in that film, and there's a literal cyclops.
That takes it a little bit more. That takes it a little bit more literally.
Apparently, the original the Odyssey was Williford's inspiration for this.
Yeah.
So that is intentional, and apparently the earlier version had more like obvious references to some of those characters.
Yeah, like the scene you mentioned, or the sub. Plot that you mentioned with going off with this woman and performing music that kind of fits into that. And it's even when you're not maybe overtly riffing on the Odyssey, just that those traveling tales where there's this goal at the end, you could say that about, a gazillion novels, stories, movies.
It's like constant forward momentum and there's no stop. Like,
right.
The characters never get a moment to like breathe, and if they do, it's like very, very, very minuscule. Like,
and when you do a story like that, you can have all these touch points along the way that reflect, something about the character. You make discoveries about them usually, and it's. I think it's just a great device to use for stories instead of. I think I kind of feel that way about heist films. I got really into heist films last year, and it's the same sort of thing where you've got maybe two guys are going to do this heist, and then you've got to bring in this other guy, and you practice on this thing, and then you've got all these little side pieces to go till you get to that final moment, and the final moment is going to reveal what happens with this character ultimately. And the same goes for this, where we have this probably the longest fight in the movie, the final showdown between Burke, the Harry Dean Stanton character, and Warren Oates' character, and his girlfriend Mary Elizabeth does end up showing up and watching the cockfight, and we get numerous cutaways to her, and she's obviously not enjoying herself. And he's got this opportunity. Then she has come to see his world. That's what he wanted. How is this going to play out for him? Is this going to work? And he leaves before the Cockfighter of the Year is even announced. So you think, oh, he's going to go with his lady. And, we're left with that fun, ambiguous ending where she gives it to him. She never does that cave-in thing where like, oh, I'll stop cockfighting. And she's like, no, I'm glad I saw this because this is not the person that I thought you were at all. And but he still has hope at the end because his final line in the film is, "She loves me, Omar."
First and final line of the film, technically.
Yeah, if you disregard the flashback, which takes place before the film proper.
I don't know if she's gonna be. If your fiance gives you like a severed chicken's head, like.
I don't know. He's a better reader.
She takes it.
Yeah, she takes it.
She leaves with it. I don't know.
That is a really good point. That is a very good point.
Here's my heart.
she leaves. Yeah, she leaves with it because this is I think her point is this is as good as I'm going to get from you. So yeah, I don't see them getting to. I'm not saying I see them getting together. Tears the head off of
his prize chicken and gives it to her. Like it's his prize chicken. Like,
the chicken's dead.
Yeah, it's already dead.
I know no shit, guys.
Hey, they still got 2 more rounds though. They both got 2 rounds, so
it's fair.
We can count to 20 again. See if it comes back to life.
Boy.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal, that last fight.
Yeah. I guess she was pissed at his lack of reaction.
He kind of has a one-track mind.
Right, but she's upset that his reaction isn't abject horror like hers. Because he doesn't react. I mean, the poster shows him like screaming at the gamecock, but like that's not, nobody does that, because like that's not how this works. Like they kind of do their own thing. They have a one-track mind once you set them into the pit to fight one another. So I guess she's just upset that he wasn't as horrified at the idea of a giant needle spur going into another animal and killing it, as the rest of us are. It's pretty brutal stuff.
Because Chris knows that I show a lot of stuff to my daughter, and I was checking where I could watch it over the weekend, and I said, "Yeah, you're not going to want to watch this one with me."
I was about to ask, did you show this one to your daughter?
There's actual animal deaths. She's pretty. She would not have been up for that at all, and I wouldn't show it to her.
And what's strange is we hear about something like Cannibal Holocaust, but why is this not mentioned? In this angry diatribe on the internet of these movies have actual animal murders, so we shouldn't be why is this not in there? Holy shit. I'm not saying it should be, but I'm what is the double standard? Because this is a good movie and Cannibal Holocaust could be viewed as just exploitation, because this is exploitative. This is more exploitative in a lot of ways than Cannibal Holocaust is. At least in the animal death, it's being filmed for quote unquote entertainment value here.
I don't know. I think it's a different world. I think it's a different. The animal deaths in kind of Cannibal Holocaust bother us. They wouldn't necessarily bother other cultures where they're killing this giant tortoise, and I've not seen it. I've only heard about it, and they're going to eat it.
That's not what this is for.
Roosters are kind of pointless in the chicken world, from my understanding. You can't really eat them. The only thing they're good for is making other chickens. You can eat them, but you have to braise or stew it for hours and hours and hours.
They're gamey.
Right. And they touch on that a little bit in the movie. But I think even at the time this was filmed, it was still legal in Florida. It was probably legal in other states prior to that, but it wasn't something that was just banned outright in the whole United States. The film has not shown in the UK. I think it's still banned there because of the animal deaths in it. So I think some people do view it probably that way.
Sure. I look, ultimately for me, I've now seen it. I can watch it again, and at this point, I've seen it. It can't upset me any more than it already has. There's no new chicken fighting footage to watch. So, you know what I mean? I made it through it once. How much more upset can I get, rewatching it? I've seen it now. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think it discounts or discredits this movie's quality at all. I think this is a movie that, why is this not Kino Lorber? Jump on this one, guys. Come on. I'm just saying, man, these kinds of movies deserve reappreciation, and it deserves to be somewhere better than Tubi. Nothing wrong with Tubi, but come on. This is a good movie. This is a objectively good movie.
A lot of Monte Hellman's movies are sort of orphaned, Flight to Fury, Backdoor to Hell, China 9, Liberty 37. Those don't really have great releases, or if they've ever been released. I think up until Criterion did Right in the Whirlwind of the Shooting, those weren't available.
Am I mistaken that Cockfighter got a Blu-ray release recently, or am I making that up?
If it did, I'm going to look that up. I remember it had a DVD that's been out of print.
Yeah, it might be. What I might be thinking about is in discussing this with Mike, I know that he has an episode planned for this, and it kind of revolves around that project that Kayla Janice is working on. So that might be what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, there's no Blu-ray out over here yet. It looks like there was one in Japan from 2013.
Yeah. And like you said, a lot of his films kind of get, so many people, like even myself, as I mentioned at the beginning, Two Lane Blacktop was sort of the only thing I really knew his name from. I'd seen bits and pieces of some of his other movies over the years, just catching them like I know I've seen part of the shooting on TCM before, and I love that he did an entry in the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise, which I still haven't watched. But yeah, he had an odd, one of those odd careers.
I'm checking, and it looks like
looks wild.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either. All the ones that I did watch were really interesting. Flight to Fury, great early Jack Nicholson crime heist kind of film.
That's a good one.
The shooting is amazing. Riding the Whirlwind was good too. Both those make a good double feature. I watched
Backdoor to Hell is worth tracking down.
And I haven't seen China 9 Liberty 30. Is that it? Are those the numbers? China 9?
Yes, Liberty 37.
That's another one I want to watch too.
It's terrific, but the problem I ran into with that is the only copies I could find were pan and scan. And it really did not help the movie at all. It really hurt it. Here's something about so for this movie, it looks like it is back in print from on DVD for $10 on Amazon. Did y'all watch the open matte or the widescreen version?
I watched the widescreen version.
What about you, Chris?
The widescreen as well.
So I did both. I kind of think I liked the open matte a little better. And it felt like the compositions were meant to have a little bit of room on top. Like watching the widescreen, like things were cut off at the head all the time.
Sure.
And one of the reasons I didn't watch this for so long is that I kept trying to find some sort of confirmation, like an interview with Monte Hellman where he would say, no, we always intended it to be widescreen, or no, the open matte is correct. And they're good. They're both good. They're both watchable. But I think I personally prefer the open matte.
I watched a couple of minutes of the open the full frame version, and I kind of got the opposite feeling. I was like, there's too much headspace. But
interesting.
But in certain scenes in that widescreen version, it did seem oddly matted and like real close to the head. And then you can think, well, was that a choice, or is this just bad cropping? There's a really weird shot at the beginning of the movie when Harry Dean Stanton and Warren Oates are talking by the trailer, and it's a profile of Warren Oates, and Harry Dean Stanton kind of comes around the side, and he's standing there and kind of cocks his fingers on his hips, and it's just like his crotch is just like middle frame, front and center. And I thought, okay, is this deliberate? Like, this is, talk about cockfighting. And is this deliberate, or is this because it's presented widescreen 1.85 to 1? And would seeing that scene, and I guess I could have gone back and checked, it wouldn't have gotten his head, but it would have been,
It's still weird. It still stands out as just like, this is his crotch is in the center of this frame.
And to me that seems purposeful. Like, here we go. It's literal cockfighting and it's figurative cockfighting with these guys.
With natural lighting too.
Yeah, with natural lighting.
Natural lighting on the cock. All the cocks with the natural lighting.
I kind of like the fact that like this rivalry between the two of them is so like sorry, I can't speak English today. It's kind of like they're not screaming, they're not using profanity, they're not like
gentlemanly.
Punching. Yeah.
But that's this is the South, bro. This is the South. I mean, that's the whole fucking genteel shit. I mean,
but the Ed Begley Jr. character is the opposite. Like,
right.
He's underhanded.
He's not culture. He's not.
No, he's not.
Well, he and Steve Railsback though both kind of approach it the same way, and they both get their comeuppance, and right. I think that is very purposeful again, and it's always that kind of repartee between them and learning that language of that subculture, like I referenced earlier, where they're doing the betting and do you want odds and are you asking for odds, Frank, and who gets to pick the Spurs, coin toss, all that stuff. There's still some kind of it's like an old code that they're all following, and even though he does stuff like cutting the beak and maybe a few other tricks, and Williford as Middleton mentions that to him, you're like, I know that old beak trick, but you just got to be careful with it. With anything that you're doing while cheating, like sticking your finger up but it might,
And it doesn't work. The cheating with the beak, it backfires on him.
Right, and that's what exactly. And then the other kid towards the end there, that Richie Tannenbaum guy that's in a lot of the different scenes with the long hair and the sweatband. He does something else, and I never quite caught what it is that
he pushes. He's pushing the bird rather than letting the bird go.
Okay,
right.
And it's like, I mean,
in the world of cockfighting, cheating don't prosper.
And that's kind of the point of the movie for me. Like, this world that you think is just going to be, you've seen probably cockfighting in other movies, and it's just like this sweaty, gross mess where no one has any honor at all. And this is the opposite of that. And they've really mainly follow the rules that have been set up for this subculture.
Yeah, it's, I don't know how much of it is romanticized, because again, there is a heavy dose of romanticization of this, I would think. But at the same time, like, you go tell me out down there in the South, they ain't doing no cockfighting in one of them old plantation homes. Like, that shit, that was happening. Like, the rich enjoy this kind of thing just as much as the local folks who are using their own personal roosters. So, it's that interplay. And I personally wish there was more of it in the movie. Like, you see it a little bit with, them getting robbed, because it's like, oh, they're in like a hotel room fighting the birds, which is like fucking insanity in and of itself. What do we do with the dead birds? Throw them in the bathtub. Like, okay. But I wish there was a little bit more of that interplay, because that's interesting, because like they do make a point, like you said, Mark, of like, there's honor here, there were rules here. Is it animals fighting with giant like daggers on their claws or needles on their claws? Sure, but there is a sense of like a code, honor, and like I wish they kind of, I don't know, like I'm always the kind of person who likes the technical shit in these kinds of movies, like learning more about it. That's my kind of stuff.
Read the book.
Okay, so
that's all the book is.
Right, I'm sure.
This sort of stuff.
I'm sure.
It's great. I love the book. I love the movie. But I would highly recommend diving into the book. It's a quick read.
I figured that, and I'm kind of bummed that I didn't. I let time kind of slip by me.
What are we talking, like 200-300 pages type thing, or less than that?
Oh, far less.
Okay.
This was originally a paperback original, so I would imagine this would have clocked in under 200. Like, if you get the Black Lizard reprint, it's like a third of an inch, the binding. Like, it's a tiny book.
I mean, I'm still my book a week. I'm still going strong. So who knows? Maybe I'll maybe I'll pick it up and read it. I don't know. I mean, it's, again, it makes for a great movie. Clearly,
I would highly recommend any Williford. He still has a bunch that I haven't read, but High Priest of California about the sleazy used car salesman is terrific. Pickup is great.
He's got a great.
I still need to read that.
I haven't read any. Apparently, I've seen a couple of movies based on his work, though. So,
yeah, the Hope Mosley series is what kind of saved him.
Yeah, that's what I read.
Because he, was a career military guy for the longest time, and then when he retired, he never even graduated high school. That's when he went back to college, and while he was, in college, he was writing for. Writing paperback originals, for these, kind of like really low, like, small publishers. The only notable one he had was for Gold Medal, and it was under a pseudonym. And I think when this was republished in 1972, he hadn't had a novel in a decade. And I think he was teaching community college, and that's what he did up through the mid 80s. And I think Miami Blues was 1984.
Wow.
And then that was a hit. And his agent said, great, you have a hit, write me a sequel. And then he wrote something called Grimhaven that killed off the main character. And his agent was like, fuck you. We're going to make some money off this character. And then made him write there's like 5 books in the series, so clearly that didn't happen.
Well, he's got a little bit of Frank Mansfield in him, sabotage yourself. But he does. He's a fine, good actor too.
Yeah,
he's great in that part.
Yeah,
I dig him.
It's a smart little role to have. Kind of insert yourself into your own story. It's cute. I like it.
As the ref, who's the sensible one and knows all the rules and regulations.
And I think he's a good role model for Frank, because he's someone that has managed to stay in this world and make a career of it.
Yeah. I agree that, like you said earlier, that's the path that Frank's headed down.
If he can stay focused. I'm trying to imagine what the sequel would be, and
be very different because he's talking all of a sudden. Man just needs to take a vow of silence for his lifetime.
I think it's going to go bad when he starts talking again.
Well, in that brief scene where he does talk, he is definitely a bigger asshole than in the, other 82 minutes of the film.
Yeah, That's fair. So, Mr. Cullen Gallagher, would you skip it or watch it on Cockfighter?
I would watch it. I mean, with the caveat that we've all said, like, be aware what the content is. And if you're okay with watching it, then I would say watch it. If you're not comfortable with it, then there's a lot of other great Monte Hellman movies, a lot of other great Ed Begley Jr. movies that don't have, the death of chickens on screen. So
it's weird. Every other Ed Begley Jr. movie has chickens being killed on screen. It was just this weird thing. All these movies he was in with chickens being killed. What about you, Mr. Mark Begley?
I would definitely watch it again and recommend it with that same caveat. And I actually hadn't watched this since that first. I felt like I had, but I was checking my lists, and apparently I only watched it the one time. And I don't think it was because of the chicken fighting. I don't know, trying to squeeze in other movies I hadn't seen instead of just rewatching stuff that I fall in love with, which is sort of hard to do. But yeah, I mean, and like Cullen said, there's a lot of other great Monte Hellman films to get into, a lot of great Warren Oates films. I tried to mention a couple earlier, Harry Dean Stanton. Check out those old dudes. And Richard B. Schull.
I didn't even mention him. He was great. And he seems like a really strange dude. Like,
he is one of those guys that pops up in all these weird movies. When Mike was doing his movie nights, Cullen, more regularly, like last year or the year before even, that guy showed up in like 2 or 3 different films that he showed, and I don't think it was by design. And one of the times, I don't remember which movie it was, I looked him up and remembered this really weird show that he was in back in this, I believe in either the late 70s or early 80s, called Holmes and Yo-Yo.
Whoa.
It's him and this other, they're cops, but one of them is a robot. And it's just, and I saw that and I was like, oh my God, I think I watched this as a kid and had no recollection of it, never thought about it. Like, there's shows that I think about all the time, like Hardy Boys and all that kind of stuff that I watched as a kid. But I know I watched this show. I looked at a few clips on YouTube and I was like, oh my God, I watched this. I think it ran for like a half a season or something. But it's a really weird concept.
Wow. John Shuck, dude. What the fuck?
You gotta throw it on your Plex.
What the hell, man?
Big obtuse, just this big thing on his chest, and it makes beeps and boops and stuff. And
I don't know how much you guys looked into Richard B. Schull, but apparently he like had his own railroad car that he would travel around the country in.
That's amazing.
Whoa.
And he bought 40s clothing. He used that. This is according to John Shuck, his co-star on Holmes and Yo-Yo, said that he was a man who lived in the 40s, used pen and ink.
How funny.
Had his own railroad car, had a 1949 Chevy. I mean, he sounds like an interesting guy. And he was also an invested member of the Baker Street Irregulars.
There's next, you got he could be a month next year. I got so much to choose from if I get invited back.
Oh, you're doing well so far.
Just wait till we get to hardcore.
Yeah, right. I think for me, this is a watch. I enjoyed this movie a lot. Again, like we said, there's this kind of caveat here. But again, it kind of is what it is. The subject, you're not going to watch this movie not like, oh, what's the subject material of this movie? Like,
that is a good, yeah, the title tells you.
The title should be a dead giveaway, as they would say. So, I don't know. That's where I'm coming from. I think it's a great movie. Otherwise, it makes me want to check out some more Warren Oates movies. And yeah, if you can get over the chicken killing, which, again, your mileage will vary with the chicken killing, I think it's a great movie. Totally worth checking out. You're muted.
There's something going around Twitter, and it goes around all the time. Would this movie get made today? And this is one of those movies where you can really say, yeah, no, this movie ain't getting made today.
I'm not even sure in a lot of ways that this movie should have been made when it was made the way that it was made. But look, it has been made. So with the fact that it has been made, we have to do something with that. We can enjoy it for what it is, which is a fun little trip into a subculture. You know what it reminds me of, ultimately? I wanted to leave you guys with this. Convoy. It's that same, weird 70s obsession with, Southern subculture, like Smokey and the Bandit. Same thing,
Yeah, I love Convoy.
We'll be getting into subculture again next week.
I was about to say. So on that note, let's take a break, and we'll play a preview for next week's episode.
Segue.
So I guess we're going to call next week's episode, or this coming episode, Citizens Band, though it has several titles, correct? Citizens Band, it's about a subculture that is actually more near and dear to my heart than one might imagine. I actually have my own ham radio license. I am a ham radio license operator, my friend.
Well, you can...
Who knew? Who knew?
You can school us on because you get... Just like in this movie, you get the lingo, you get the bylaws, you get the rules and regulations.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So we'll see if it cuts the mustard on that,
Yeah, this is a subculture I had no idea about, but next week I kind of have more of an idea because, like I said, I actually have my ham radio license. That's something that my dad pushed for me to get when I was growing up, and that was something that he really liked, so I did it. So we'll be talking about a movie that's all about ham radio operators, so that's kind of fucking random.
When we get to hardcore, then we'll be getting into the subculture that I know of.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. Oh, Jesus. And oddly enough, Cullen and Mark and our good friend, Mr. Mike White, will be joining us next week.
Wow. I didn't know it was going to be on. That'll be so much fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun because, it's a movie that I think it came up last year at some point. We were talking about it randomly, and then Mark was like, "Oh, we're going to talk about that." I was like, "Oh, fuck, okay." So I'm looking forward to it. Until then, Mr. Begley, where can people find you?
You can find me at wakeupheavy.com. All the stuff is there that you need to listen to my show.
Just in general, anything you would ever want to listen to in life.
And it has all the links to, where you can listen. And you can find me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at wakeupheavy.com. And I just wanted to sign off, because I didn't get to do this at the beginning, and say, of course, now it doesn't make any sense. Let's all go to the mystic realm of the great cock. That was going to be my lead-in, damn it.
See, that's the problem with starting in media res like the show we do now. I
had two other good ones, too.
I mean, hey, it's still a good one. And boy, there was a lot of more talking about cock in this movie without actual wieners being shown than I'm used to. So there is that. Speaking of that, Colin, where can people find you if they were looking?
I don't know about looking, but if you're listening, you can find me on a fancy new podcast called The Shabby Detective. Thank you very much, Chris and Mike, for inviting me.
Good tunes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did a piece that is the outro. So I'm extremely proud. First time I am a podcast composer.
Yeah.
Can add it to my LinkedIn, podcast composer.
You can. And
If you like what you hear on the Shabby Detective, contact me. I'll give you a discount.
Whoa.
I didn't give you a discount.
I don't think he's joking, folks. If you get Mike handled it, I don't know.
Oh no, it was an absolute joy. But other than that, I'm at pulp-serenade.com. I don't update it as much as I should, and I will hopefully have. I've been working on 2 pieces about W.R. Burnett. One is going to be in a republished version of High Sierra and Asshole Jungle that Starkhouse Press is putting out, and the other essay on Burnett should be in the LA Review of Books sometime in April.
That's awesome. It's awesome.
What about you, Chris?
Where are people gonna find? Where do they find me? Right here? ? I wanted to mention to you, Cullen. Now we can say Pulp-Serenade and also podcast music composer Cullen Gallagher. It's got
it's got a good ring to it.
I mean, hey, you know what? Be proud of your achievements.
I'm extremely proud. That was a really great way to start the year. It was super. It was a nice little confidence boost.
And I never seen Columbo before, and I'm enjoying it. So there's that, which, should be good for people who want to listen to that show, because it's not just us hating on something like I think people say about Dreams for Sale. I don't know if they've watched Twilight Zone recently, but that 85 show gets real bad. But most of the things that I talk about are at cstachiw.com, cstachiw.com. That's my link tree where the things that Cullen mentioned kind of and the things that I've just talked about now are. And Mark and I have done bonus episodes before on the Patreon, which is patreon.com/culturecast. I think we did a anime one last year. You remember that? Yeah, that fucking long-ass movie.
Howl's Moving Castle. Howl's Moving Castle.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it was all right.
Go listen to it on Patreon. Back some of the money that they paid you to do the music for.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And Mark, again, good pick. Great pick. Another good movie, so trending upward. There's no downward yet. And, we talk about good movies here on this show.
I don't think there'll be a downward, but I don't know.
Well,
you might not like hardcore.
A movie about
that's a good. Hardcore is a good flick. I like that movie.
And you can check us out on the next episode.